Hi there, my friend. It's my joy to read to you today the readings for day number 276. Again, the Lord is teaching us how to live as His children. And the readings for today that will help teach us are found in 2 Chronicles 29, ECCLESIASTES.5, and our second reading in Matthew 18. So, welcome back, and I'm glad you've joined me. Let's go into 2 Chronicles 29. Ahaz's rule was one of the darkest chapters in Judah's history. The people didn't even bury him in the royal cemetery. He closed the temple and put up places to worship Baal all over the country. Even when under severe punishment from the Lord, he never turned to the Lord for help. 2 Chronicles 29. Hezekiah became king of Judah at the age of 25, and he ruled in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. Following the example of his ancestor King David, he did what was pleasing to the Lord. In the first month of the year after Hezekiah became king, he reopened the gates of the temple and had them repaired. He assembled a group of priests and Levites in the east courtyard of the temple and spoke to them there. He said, "You Levites are to consecrate yourselves and purify the temple of the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Remove from the temple everything that defiles it. Our ancestors were unfaithful to the Lord our God and did what was displeasing to Him. They abandoned Him and turned their backs on the place where He dwells. They closed the doors of the temple, let the lamps go out, and failed to burn incense or offer burnt offerings in the temple of the God of Israel. Because of this, the Lord has been angry with Judah and Jerusalem, and what He has done to them has shocked and frightened everyone. You know this very well. Our fathers were killed in battle, and our wives and children have been taken away as prisoners. I have now decided to make a covenant with the Lord, the God of Israel, so that He will no longer be angry with us. My sons, do not lose any time. You are the ones that the Lord has chosen to burn incense to Him and to lead the people in worshiping Him." The following Levites were there. From the clan of Kohath, Mahath, son of Amasai, and Joel, son of Azariah. From the clan of Merari, Kish, son of Abdi, and Azariah, son of Jahalalel. From the clan of Gershon, Joash, son of Zimmah, and Aden, son of Joah. From the clan of Elizaphan, Shimri, and Jeuel. From the clan of Asaph, Zechariah, and Mattaniah. From the clan of Heman, Jehuel, and Shimei. From the clan of Jeduthun, Shemaiah, and Uziel. These men assembled their fellow Levites, and they all made themselves ritually clean. Then, as the king had commanded them to do, they began to make the temple ritually clean, according to the law of the Lord. The priests went inside the temple to purify it, and they carried out into the temple courtyard everything that was ritually unclean. From there the Levites took it all outside the city to Kidron Valley. The work was begun on the first day of the first month, and by the 8th day they had finished it all, including the entrance room to the temple. Then they worked for the next 8 days until the 16th of the month, preparing the temple for worship. The Levites made the following report to King Hezekiah. "We have completed the ritual purification of the whole temple, including the altar for burning offerings, the table for the sacred bread, and all their equipment. We have also brought back all the equipment which King Ahaz took away during those years he was unfaithful to God, and we have rededicated it. It is all in front of the Lord's altar. Without delay, King Hezekiah assembled the leading men of the city, and together they went to the temple, as an offering to take away the sins of the royal family and of the people of Judah, and to purify the temple. They took 7 bulls, 7 sheep, 7 lambs, and 7 goats. The king told the priests, who were descendants of Aaron, to offer the animals as sacrifices on the altar. The priests killed the bulls first, then the sheep, and then the lambs, and sprinkled the blood of each sacrifice on the altar. Finally, they took the goats to the king and to the other worshippers, who laid their hands on them. Then the priests killed the goats and poured their blood on the altar as a sacrifice to take away the sin of all the people, for the king had commanded that burnt offerings and sin offerings be made for all Israel. The king followed the instructions that the Lord had given to King David through Gad, the king's prophet, and through the prophet Nathan. He stationed Levites in the temple with harps and cymbals, instruments like those that King David had used. The priests also stood there with trumpets. Hezekiah gave the order for the burnt offering to be presented, and as the offering began, the people sang praise to the Lord, and the musicians began to play the trumpets and all the other instruments. Everyone who was there joined in worship, and the singing and the rest of the music continued until all the sacrifices had been burned. Then King Hezekiah and all the people knelt down and worshipped God. The king and all the leaders of the nation told the Levites to sing to the Lord the songs of praise that were written by David and by Asaph the prophet. So everyone sang with great joy as they knelt and worshipped God. Hezekiah said to the people, "Now that you are ritually clean, bring sacrifices as offerings of thanksgiving to the Lord." They obeyed, and some of them also voluntarily brought animals to be sacrificed as burnt offerings. They brought 70 bulls, 100 sheep, and 200 lambs as burnt offerings for the Lord. They also brought 600 bulls and 3,000 sheep as sacrifices for the people to eat. Since there were not enough priests to kill all these animals, the Levites helped them until the work was finished. By then, more priests had made themselves ritually clean. The Levites were more faithful in keeping ritually clean than the priests were. In addition to offering the sacrifices that were burned whole, the priests were responsible for burning the fat that was offered from the sacrifices which the people ate, and for pouring out the wine that was presented with the burnt offerings. And so worship in the temple was begun again. King Hezekiah and the people were happy because God had helped them to do all this so quickly. Let's turn now to Ecclesiastes 5. In yesterday's chapter, I really like the passages that talk of having the companionship of 2 or perhaps 3 people. And that idea was echoed by Jesus' teaching about 2 or 3 gathered to promote Jesus' cause. Ecclesiastes 5. Be careful about going to the temple. It is better to go there to learn than to offer sacrifices like foolish people who don't know right from wrong. Think before you speak, and don't make any rash promises to God. He is in heaven, and you are on earth, so don't say any more than you have to. The more you worry, the more likely you are to have bad dreams, and the more you talk, the more likely you are to say something foolish. So when you make a promise to God, keep it as quickly as possible. He has no use for a fool. Do what you promise to do, Better not to promise at all than to make a promise and not keep it. Don't let your own words lead you into sin so that you have to tell God's priest that you didn't mean something. Why make God angry with you? Why let him destroy what you have worked for? No matter how much you dream, how much useless work you do, or how much you talk, you must still stand in awe of God. Don't be surprised when you see the government oppresses the poor and denies them justice and their rights. Every official is protected by someone higher, and both are protected by still higher officials. Even the king depends on the harvest. If you love money, you will never be satisfied. If you long to be rich, you will never get all you want. It is useless. The richer you are, the more mouths you have to feed. All you gain is the knowledge that you're rich. Workers may or may not have enough to eat, but at least they can get a good night's sleep. The rich, however, have so much that they stay awake worrying. Here is a terrible thing that I have seen in this world. People save up their money for a time when they may need it, and then lose it all in some bad deal and end up with nothing left to pass on to their children. We leave this world just as we entered it, with nothing. In spite of all our work, there is nothing we can take with us. It isn't right. We go just as we came. We labor trying to catch the wind, and what do we get? We get to live our lives in darkness and grief, worried, angry, and sick. Here's what I have found out. The best thing we can do is eat and drink and enjoy what we have worked for during the short life God has given us. This is our fate. If God gives us wealth and property and lets us enjoy them, we should be grateful and enjoy what we have worked for. It is a gift from God. Since God has allowed us to be happy, we will not worry too much about how short life is. And now let's open to our second reading in Matthew 18. Yesterday we heard the passage that deals with following Jesus with childlike faith, and we heard instructions for restoring broken relationships, and what to do if reconciliation is not achieved. Matthew 18, starting at verse 15, and Jesus is speaking. If your brother sins against you, go to him and show him his fault. But do it privately, just between yourselves. If he listens to you, you have won your brother back. But if he will not listen to you, take one or two other persons with you, so that every accusation may be upheld by the testimony of 2 or more witnesses, as the Scripture says. And if he will not listen to them, then tell the whole thing to the church. Finally, if he will not listen to the church, treat him as though he were a pagan or a tax collector. And so I tell all of you, what you prohibit on earth will be prohibited in heaven, and what you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven. And I tell you more, whenever 2 of you on earth agree about anything you pray for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 of you come together because you want to glorify me, I am there with you. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked him, Lord, If my brother keeps on sinning against me, how many times do I have to forgive him? 7 times? No, not 7 times, answered Jesus, but 70 times 7, because the kingdom of heaven is like this. Once there was a king who decided to check on his servants' accounts. He had just begun to do so when one of them was brought in who owed him millions of dollars. The servant did not have enough to pay his debt, so the king ordered him to be sold as a slave, with his wife and his children and all that he had, in order to pay the debt. The servant fell on his knees before the king. "Be patient with me," he begged, "and I will pay you everything." The king felt sorry for him, so he forgave the debt and let him go. Then the man went out and met one of his fellow servants who owed him a few dollars. He grabbed him and started choking him. "Pay back what you owe me," he said. His fellow servant fell down and begged him, "Be patient with me and I will pay you back." But he refused. Instead, he had him thrown into jail until he should pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were very upset and went to the king and told him everything. So he called the servant in. "You worthless slave," he said, "I forgave you the whole amount you owed me just because you asked me to. You should have had mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you." The king was very angry, and he sent the servant to jail to be punished until he should pay back the whole amount. And Jesus concluded, "That is how my Father in heaven will treat every one of you, unless you forgive your brother from your heart." Please join me in prayer today. Our loving Lord Jesus, change our hearts to remove our pride and striving to gain a higher position. Help us to figure out that most of our striving on earth is no better than trying to catch the wind. And so often it is our striving to outdo one another that causes us to offend our brothers and sisters. May we be like children who humbly trust you and welcome others. And help us to realize the millions of sins we each have been forgiven, big and little sins at the cost of your blood shed on the cross, so that we can forgive our brother or sister of his or her few little offenses toward us. Help us to forgive from the heart, not just in words. Give us loving fellowship and unity of purpose, so that we can agree on earth about the one thing which is not striving to catch the wind, namely, seeking to further your kingdom. So help us to agree together and actually pray with our fellow believers and have the joy of not just seeing our requests granted, but having the privilege of you being with us, holding our hands as we pray together. Help us to remember to seek first your kingdom, and all our other needs will be met as well.